Are you ready to explore the unknown? Dive into the world of the strange, mysterious, and unexplained with Eerie Expeditions magazine. Each issue is packed with spine-tingling tales, cutting-edge paranormal investigations, and exclusive insights into hauntings, cryptids, UFOs, and more. Whether you're a seasoned investigator or just love a good ghost story, Eerie Expeditions magazine has something for you. Join our growing community of truth seekers and adventure lovers. Subscribe today at EerieExpeditionsMagazine.com and unlock the secrets of the supernatural. Are you ready? That's EerieExpeditionsMagazine.com, where the extraordinary is just a click away. Dare to discover.
Welcome to this episode of the Gateway Broadcasting, live from the edge of the Mojave where the strange slips through the cracks. We are live on United Public Radio Network 107.7 FM New Orleans, and I'm your host, C.L. Thomas. Tonight's guest, she's an artist, she's a friend, and she's intuitive here in the heart of Las Vegas. And she paints guitars and drum sets, and she can paint your dog. She's great. She's going to share her strange tale, and I think you guys are going to like her. She's just great. I can't wait to get her on. But before we get into that, you've been listening to Sean Kelly with Into the Night right here on United Public Radio. He comes on again on Sunday nights at, I think it's 4 p.m. Pacific time. I always forget. So just to give you guys all a heads up, there's something wrong with our radio network right now. They did some sort of update, and so all of our stuff kind of got deleted. So we're kind of scrambling this week to try to figure it out. So as you just saw, it was the incorrect ad that I just ran for Eerie Expeditions magazine. But I did not forget. I know it's the wrong ad, you guys, but listen, for a short time only, if you sign up right now at EerieExpeditionsMagazine.com, you guys will get the magazine completely free, and this is going to go on for the next month. And the magazine's going to come out on January 15th. So just FYI, that's this week. So stay tuned for that. So I noticed that also that this is another pre-record, and I do apologize for that too. There's been a little bit of a mix-up with scheduling. So next week, I will be back on the show. I'm going to do a live. And you know what? I'm not going to have a guest. I've never done a solo show with you guys. And so I realized that some of you who've been listening from week to week probably don't know a lot about me other than I come on, I chit chat for about 15 minutes and then I bring on a guest, right? So next week, I have a couple books out. I know people out there may not even know that. I don't know. Do you know that? So I'm going to come on here and bring your questions. I'm going to talk a little bit about my personal journey, my life in the paranormal, and where it all started for me. I could talk about haunted Mojave locations. That's like my favorite thing to talk about right now. Haunted Las Vegas. I could talk about spirit art. You name it, bring your questions. You have me one-on-one for at least 50 minutes next Tuesday right here on UPRN. So stay tuned for that. I'm my own guest. But back to tonight, we're going to step back a few years with a strange tale, and it's a very inspirational tale. So joining me is Nancy Spurlock. She's an intuitive local artist, and she's right here in Las Vegas. Let me get her on here. Nancy, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me, CL. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's nice to see you. So Nancy lives not too far from me. I could probably throw a stone and it'll hit her house. So Nancy, tell me a little bit about your background. I don't want to get into the story just yet, but just a little bit about you and how you got into artwork.
Well, I've been an artist professionally for 10 years now, and I had an inciting incident 10 years ago. I got breast cancer, But the way I found out I had breast cancer, I kind of had an intuitive experience. And if you want to get into that deeper later, we can, or if you want to talk about it now. But after that, I became an artist, and I had never done art. But that was kind of how I did. And now I'm out in Vegas, and I'm doing drum show art and just all kinds of art, like you mentioned, dogs, whatever, instruments. Just whatever someone wants me to paint. And I'm going to actually start painting my paranormal experiences.
Yes, you are. And I can't wait until you do that. We do have a little thing that we're going to do. I plan on actually recording you and doing some video work and interviewing you with some of this.
Right.
For a little short film. I can't talk tonight. But just to give the audience kind of an idea of the kind of artwork you do instruments, like you said. You also do, you paint people's pets and things. Can you show us the guitar you have?
Okay, well, let me talk about it real quick. But behind me is a painting that my father did. He was always into UFOs and aliens. So based on his inspiration for me, I did a little intergalactic sock hop guitar, and I put some aliens on it. And I have a YouTube channel, Nancy Spurlock Art on YouTube. So I show about this art, and I talk about this art and how I paint these kit guitars, and I put all these different things. Like this one has a poem on it, but alien inspired. Tribute to my father.
I love your work, Nancy.
Thank you.
So, okay, when I first met you, I met Nancy in the pool. We have a community pool here, and she was out there sunning, and I like to do the same thing. And we just kind of hit it off. But the story she told me is just amazing. And then, of course, I started looking at her YouTube channel and watching some of the stuff. And yeah, this is just so great. So you talk about how your intuition saved your life and led you to becoming an artist. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, sure. So what happened was I had never done art, and my parents, my family, they're artists basically, but they were always hobby artists. But I had in 2015, it was the summer of 2015, there was a power outage. And I had found a lump in my breast. I was like, what am I going to do during this power outage? I thought, oh, I'll do a self-breast exam while I'm waiting for the power to come back on.
Well, now, who thinks of doing that?
My intuition told me to do it. Thank God. So I did the exam, and I thought, I found something, and I thought, that doesn't feel right. But it didn't feel like what I had always heard breast cancer would feel like, which people are like, oh, it's the size of a pea, it's round. Mine was nothing like that. What I found was like a jagged edge rock. So like a long rock that you'd fall into a riverbed and like cut yourself on. That's what it felt like. So I thought, well, that was weird. And about the time I thought that was weird, the lights came on. Literally in my house, and I kind of forgot about it, but it kept nagging me, the thought of it. It didn't bother me physically, the actual rock, but so I went to a doctor, and the doctor, his wife had passed away of breast cancer. Hi, Lindsay.
Never fails.
I love you. So his wife had passed away of breast cancer. And so he was very concerned because he knew it didn't feel right either. So he sent me to get a mammogram immediately. And I went down the hill, which was just down, the hospital was just up the hill from the cancer center. So I went down the hill and I got a mammogram, and they couldn't find it. And I thought, that's strange because this thing is weird feeling. And then I had 2 ultrasounds. And the second ultrasound, the doctor came in and she said, I'm not seeing anything on my films, like the mammogram, anything. And I told her, I said, get over here and feel this. And she did. And when she felt it, she drew her hand back very quickly. And I could tell by the look on her face, I thought, I'm in trouble. So she immediately sent me to a surgeon. So I went to the surgeon's appointment and they got me in like right away. And the surgeon said, I see a lot of cancer. I feel a lot of cancer. I don't think that's cancer. I don't know what that is, but you probably should have surgery. Come back in 6 months. Let's see what happens to it. Let's see if it grows or changes. And so I did. And when I went back in 6 months, that was January 12th, 2016, I had already painted this woman. So the woman I painted, I had gotten an early Christmas gift in December. And I painted this woman because she came to me in a dream. And it was something I had seen on Facebook. It was kind of like a drawing of like almost like a calico wearing Holly Hobby type old fashioned girl from like Little House on the Prairie times. And so when I dreamt about her, though, she was staring at the moon and her left breast was exposed. And there was a very prominent light right where what I was feeling was in the dream. And I dreamt that dream for 5 nights. And on the 5th night, I said, I kind of just sat up in bed, like, not though like you would just sit up in bed to get out of bed. I was kind of pushed out of my bed, like pushed forward. And I said, okay, I'll paint you. So I had gotten this Christmas gift and it was a tiny little paint set and just 2 canvases. And so that first canvas, I painted what I called Lunatic. And so I painted her and I thought, well, that was fun, but I'd never really painted and it was just black and white. And I just hung it next to my bed. And then I had the follow up with my doctor, the surgeon, and she said, that's when she said this probably should come out, because that's when they redid the ultrasound and the mammogram, and there it was, and it was a round black pea-sized shaped rock, but I couldn't feel it anymore. I would have, like, I could not even find it. In fact, I told her it was gone. So she let me decide whether to have the surgery because she used the word probably. It probably should come out. So I went home that night, and for the next 3 nights, the painting now is waking me up. So I'm being pushed up out of my bed, and my head is now being physically turned to face this painting, like not by my doing. So on the 3rd night of that, I said, okay, I'll have the surgery. Stop waking me up. And so the next day I called her and I said, I'm going to have the surgery. So like 5 days later on the 20th, she scheduled it and I had my surgery. And 2 days later on the 22nd of January, 2016, she said, I am so sorry, but that was stage 1 breast cancer. And your tumor growth rate was almost 60%. 20 is considered high. You would have been dead by Christmas if I had not come in. And I almost had canceled that January 12th appointment because I thought it was gone. And so sometime in between there, January 1st, before I even had that first doctor or that follow-up appointment, I painted Alice Cooper with that second canvas. And I painted him in color. And when I did, I put that on Instagram and people started liking it. And after that, that's when my art career took off. And then when I got diagnosed with cancer, 1 week later, I got laid off, so to speak, from my job, which I said to them, they said, due to budget cuts. I said, so when the budget's better, I'm coming back. And they said, no, we've eliminated your position. I cleaned out my desk and left with an ice pack on my breast because I'd had surgery and my things from my desk. And I went off and I became a professional artist. So that's how that started.
Do you think that when spirit was waking you up and leading you, it was almost as if like you painted that spirit and she was like coming out of the painting to tell you, hey, wake up, wake up. Not only does she like save your life physically, but she also kind of leads you in a complete different direction.
Oh, yes.
Do you consider that a form of spirit art?
I did not think of it that way at the time because I didn't know any better, but I definitely do now. And what happened later, though, a year after um, I changed the painting to be a different painting, and I kind of made it more ethereal. And I put these green colors and blue colors, kind of like this one side was one color, one was the other, of a woman. And I still called her lunatic. And I started doing advocacy to remind women to do self-breast exams. But then when I survived, I painted that painting all draped in white. And I put just blue around her and got rid of the green, the infection. And then I painted the original black and white painting. I put a shirt on her because I was like, I'm going to steal this painting off, and we're going to call that time in my life done.
So you just painted her over. Well,
I did.
Do you think this was a spirit guide that came through?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because I mean, I'm not joking. People are like, oh, so you sat up in bed. I'm like, no, something like physically pushed me, and like I halted. And then I did that for 3 nights. So the first thing, you know, I dreamt it for 5, but when I was physically being pushed, I'm sorry. So I dreamt it for 5. When I was dreaming of it for 3 on that 3rd night, that's when I got pushed up, and my head was turned, like literally like that, like I had no control, and it was turned toward the painting. And I said, okay, I'll paint you. But that's always been, I think that was the first time I became aware of really deep-seated intuition. But I had always had, starting with a kid with blowing light bulbs, that's when I knew, like I kind of started remembering my history of things, and it all started piecing together. And when I met you, you have this glow about you. And as I walked up to you, I knew we were going to just be instant friends, because I could just see that spirit guide around you, maybe, you know. And I'm learning so much from you and your podcasts. And because a lot of people, something I'll talk about later, maybe if we've got time, is what used to happen to me as a kid. And I would just blow these light bulbs all the time. Well, people were like, oh, you have Reiki healing energy, because my mother always called it that I had healing hands of light. And I didn't even know what Reiki was. And we weren't religious, so we weren't into like faith healing or any of laying on the hands. That wasn't a thing. I could just pop these light bulbs and I could touch you and you'd feel better.
No, you did say that you called it growing up glowing.
Mm-hmm.
And that, so do you have healing hands?
I would assume there's some sort of, like people have always said to me, how did you learn how to paint? And I said, it just comes through me and out my hands. I don't know. I have no idea. And I can paint portraits. You know, my fun little UFO guitar isn't quite my level of portraiture that I'm known for. But I mean, I definitely have all those kind of portraits, and people are like, wow, you know, you're Paul McCartney. You looks just like Paul McCartney. And how did you do it? I'm like, I have no idea. I just paint it. It just comes through me. And they're like, how do you know when to finish a painting? I'm like, I just know when I'm done. I just know it. And I put the brush down. It's like I'm possessed with this spirit. So
you painted, who was it that you painted just recently? It was, you started with this guy, and you just painted another one on the handle of a golf club.
Oh, Alice Cooper.
That's right. That looked amazing.
I painted it on the crown, the top of the golf club, to commemorate my 10 years. Yeah, and what happened was, too, when I painted Alice, after that, I became friends with members of his band. I've met Alice, I've met his wife, his son, his daughter. When his daughter would come to town with her band, I became friends with them. I've done guitars, I've done jewelry, I've done greeting cards. I've taken them to the grocery store. I've taken them to the mechanic to pick up their van. You know, it's like we're friends now. So it's crazy, though, how all that happened. And Alice's drummer, Glenn Sobel, was the first drummer I painted at my very first drum show. And that is really like what, helped me raise my 2 kids after having lost my job and going through a cancer diagnosis, was drum shows and meeting all those musicians through the drum show community.
You have another drum show coming up, don't you?
I do. It's March 29th here in Vegas.
Yeah.
And I'm actually going to be painting some hands holding drumsticks, because speaking of hands, and those guys are all fantastic. The drum show community has really embraced me. But I am going to do a special painting that has to do with hands, and they're holding sticks, where I hold paintbrushes. They hold the sticks.
Well, I guess you're kind of stickish, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know.
Sure.
But okay, so I'm going to back it up just a little bit to where when you were a kid,
Right.
and were the light bulbs going out at that time, or did that start later?
No, I was about 8 years old when I remember, as far back as I remember with that. My mother, she had a beauty shop, they called it, a hair salon now, in our backyard. She had a separate shop. There was a problem. We had an intercom system between our home and the shop. And sometimes when I would touch it, it would zap out. And then, but if my brother worked it or touched it, it would be fine. So I thought, oh, I'm just not doing it right. And then after that, I started, like, anytime I would get near the light bulbs for the lamps, I would pop them. And I mean, like, I wouldn't even turn the handle or turn the switch or anything. I would just get near it and they would just. So after that, my mom said to me, Nancy, you're not allowed to touch the lights anymore, or you're going to have to start paying for all these bulbs. And she meant it. But what she did notice was when I would touch those bulbs, I would go out and I'd say, Mama, I broke the lamp again. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. And she'd have a friend or one of the ladies whose hair she was doing. And I would kind of go like, oh, hi, Miss Edna. Hi, Miss Joanne. And I would touch them and they would say, wow, you're electric. You're making me feel this way. And I would light them up, so to speak. So, and these were elderly women. So I just never thought of it. And my mother would say, yeah, she's got those healing hands of light because I'm blowing all her bulbs. So it started there. And I do recall some things. I don't know what's like the order it would go in, but throughout my life after that, electronics, are different now. You had access to a lot of electronics now. But back then I didn't have that kind of access. But as I started to age, anytime I would get anything battery operated or electronic, like I went through a lot of computers. I went through a lot of handheld recorders when I was a journalist. And they were like, what are you doing to these laptops? What are you doing to these? I'm like, I don't know. But I was older then. But I always kind of just had this energy. And then I had evidence of always having like a light around me in photos. But back then, you have a film camera and you get your film developed. Sometimes that would happen, right? Well, I could be in the photo with other people, but I would be the one with the aura around me, and they didn't have it. So it's like, I don't know. Who knows? Who knows?
Now, do you see people's auras now?
Well,
I know you said you saw like something around me in the pool, but is it color? Is it just a light?
I think what I do is I can see a good person's aura, but I can feel a bad person. So like when I was walking up to you, now we were out in the sun, but I knew you were good energy. I could tell you were glowing. I could just tell. But I have been in places where I will encounter someone and I can feel that darkness. And I'll just be like, grabbing my kids to get away from them or whatever, crossing the street, because I just know. And I just know intuitively what's going on with them. And as I've gotten older, I can fine tune it, because then I got to where I met this girl one time, and we won't name names, but I met her and immediately I saw something. I'd never really seen this kind of stuff before, but I saw 3 gold trophies. And I thought she must be an actress. But the thing was, she was in a different field. And to protect her, I'm going to say that. So, but I kept waiting for her to change careers and to get these 3 trophies. But what I found was she had so much drama in her life that now I interpret those 3 trophies as drama. And she was like times 3. So I can now, I've had encounters with people where I can feel or see something, but not to the level of like Teresa Caputo or somebody, you know? So I don't know. It's just sometimes I've had to tell people stuff. I went on a date one time, and this guy, very attractive. And I'm single. It's very hard to find a single eligible man in Vegas.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. But I told him, I said, we're not going to date. I'm meant to tell you something. And he's Australian. And I just said to him, I said, you're Nana. Because I go by, like, in my life, you have grandmas or grannies, because we're all Southern. You know, my family is. I was raised in St. Louis, but my family is all Southern. Well, I said, your Nana is trying to tell me something to tell you, and it has to do with your lungs. And he went to the doctor after that, and he did. He had a lung problem. But I could just, like, at times be like, oh, Nana, that was a nice message, but he was a single guy. And oh, I'm not supposed to date him. You just wanted that. Okay. You know, you just got to accept it sometimes.
It's like, dang it, spirit.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you ever thought of taking like Reiki classes or anything like that? Have you done that at all?
No.
To try to develop the healing hands a little more?
No, because after the cancer, I'm going to need some water. After the cancer, what happened was I didn't want to absorb any more energy or any more of that. I didn't want that. So I didn't want to be around it. I didn't want to absorb, because I had wondered, I had been in a very negative situation when I had cancer at the company I worked for. And I wondered if I took that on, you know?
You know, it's interesting you say that, because I just had a conversation just recently with another medium. And, you know, I do mediumship work with spirit art. And one of the things that happens in this line of work is that you tend to take on a lot of the negative emotions, the negative energy from other people. For instance, like when I go to some of these haunted locations that I've been to, and I don't go to them as often anymore for this reason, you end up taking their stories home with you. And a lot of times it's negative, sad, or very emotional. I'm one of those people that tend to carry that around with me. And I'm a 2 times cancer survivor. Right. A lot of people that are in mediumship either have or had cancer or some kind of really serious illness. So whenever you say that, I really think there's something to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, so to move ahead a little bit to make you understand and your listeners understand. So as I was growing up, and now I'm 16, my friend and I started playing with the Ouija board. And she was 17. She had this cute little sports car. And we would just take that Ouija board with us everywhere, like it was our friend, put it in the car, and we'd just go play it in cemeteries and all kinds of things. Well, we had that thing moving fast, and it was giving accurate information. So we started getting angry at each other, accusing each other of pushing it. And we wanted to solve it. So we decided to get the Scrabble board, the Scrabble pieces. And we got the Scrabble board out. We flipped all the letters over. We scrambled them up, and we made sure there was no like once you start doing that, there's no way you're going to remember where a letter was if you planted a letter, right? So we flipped a coin, and we said, I won the coin toss of who would flip over the letter. We were in her basement. I'll never forget it. We asked the Ouija board what the letter was. So I had reached over and I pulled it out, but I barely, I just got the lip of that box and just set it over on the carpet. There was no looking, there was no feeling underneath it. And we asked the Ouija board what that letter was, and it shot immediately to the letter S. And when it did, that Ouija board was like probably 3 or 4 inches away from where the letter was. And that letter popped up like popcorn cooking in a hot pan, flipped over, and it was an S. We jumped up and ran up her stairs to the kitchen where her mother was. I never went in her basement again. I didn't touch a Ouija board for 30 years. But I think that was really kind of where I think that the Healing Hands of Light stuff with the light bulbs started it. But I think that's where some things got let in to my life. We'll say I peed my pants on the way up the stairs. I mean, I was 16 years old. Scared me so bad. So yeah, that I think is where the first time the negativity came in, because we played that Ouija board all summer long for 2-3 months. And yeah, it ended with anger and fighting with my friend. And then that happened, and I peed my pants on the way up the stairs, So I think that's where I kind of let it in. So after cancer and everything, I used to be the person that they'd say, oh, you'll give the shirt off your back. And then I kind of became the person who would just give the coat. And now I'm like, I'm just going to have to give it a different way.
There's nothing coming off.
I don't think I could handle Reiki. I just save the energy now for who I love.
Mm-hmm. That makes perfect sense.
Pure love. I could, heal my kids, a good friend, but just only love, just in case someone's got some stuff going on, a stranger. I can't have it.
Now, I think around Halloween, was it? I brought a Ouija board to your house.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Was that the first time you touched a Ouija board in years?
Well, okay, so you met my cousin, Tina, who was visiting,
yes.
And she's a self-proclaimed witch, and she collects Ouija boards. Her house, when I was getting divorced, and my kids, we went to her house for Halloween. That was the first time I touched it in 30 years. But I mean, literally just touch it and move my hand. I didn't play it. I didn't do anything. So when you came over and brought that was, and you know what happened.
Yes.
Tell that.
Yeah. So, I do seances every now and then, like maybe once in a blue moon, for people who ask for that sort of thing. And something always seems to happen, which at your house, it just happened to be the door slammed shut.
Yes. Yeah.
But,
and we asked for a sign, and that door just shut, like boom. And we were like, what?
It sounded like somebody just went.
Yeah, the heater had not kicked on. No one was in that room. I mean, that was crazy. So I thought, oh, darn. You know what I forgot, Crystal? I forgot to make that sign we talked about where, I don't curse.
Oh, that's all right. That's all right.
Sorry.
That's one of the smaller words, right? So.
Yeah. So when that slammed shut, I thought, not again. I can't have it. I can't do it. No.
Now I have like Ouija boards that, I collect some odd things, and I have a really old one from, I think it's from the 60s. And that's the one I brought to your house, actually. That one seems to have a lot of energy to it. But I have some other ones too around the house that, I don't sit around and play Ouija boards, but I just have them because I collect occult stuff.
Yeah.
So they're just in my collection. But it's some people say they're dangerous, other people don't. It just depends on, I guess, what you're bringing through and what your intentions are.
Yeah, I'm not really afraid of them anymore. I wouldn't have played, but I think what now I think what I learned through cancer and through the journey of having that intuition and that dream waking me up and is, one, none of us are getting out of here alive, and two, they're all around us. And if you want to contact someone, I'm the one to contact to do that, because I have some sort of like power in me, direct line to the other side, with other things I've seen and had happen, so much that I actually went to a ghost hunting kind of situation one time with some pretty reputable people. And because I wanted answers, because some of these other things I've seen are just so unlike just, a knock or a sound. And in that case, the door slammed. That was a slam. I'm like, I'm your girl. You want something, you want to connect with somebody on the other side, probably going to be me that'll bring it out, because that just happens with me in my life. But I mean, I've seen a platform in the sky. I've seen an entity that disappeared, disintegrated. And I've had witnesses when these things were happening, mostly. So stuff that's pretty bigger than just a knock. It's like, these.
Right.
It's not, some people do this for entertainment. And I think you and I are both more, I think it's okay to be entertained and to understand, because that does kind of, as the gateway, that is kind of the gateway into understanding we're not alone. Some people can't handle it. Apparently, I am made of titanium steel and can handle anything, because I get to see it all and I get to experience it. And when I say that, like, here I've got these aliens, I've never seen a literal cylinder disc with lights in the field in front of me, but I've seen a platform in the sky that was the size of a football field that illuminated, but I didn't see the little green men come out. So I think there's definitely
an entity outside your window, though, right?
What's that?
You saw an entity outside of your window at one point,
Yes.
right? Was that an alien?
Well, all right, this is what happened. Up to that point, my daughter would not go in her bedroom. And she had a nice room with a flat screen TV, and she was a kid. She had her Barbies, she had everything in there, but she got to where she was afraid to go in there. And she would open her door and just toss her clean laundry on the bed and shut the door really quick. And I thought that was really odd. So she started sleeping in my room, and we got a new kitten. And so I thought, I'm going to get her this kitten. Maybe she's just afraid. And so 3 days before the entity, this is when it started. The first morning, I was sitting in the living room, and my daughter walked past me to go into the kitchen. And right when she got to the kitchen, the lights turned on by themselves. And she went to go make pancakes. And she said, "Mom, the lights turned on." And I was like, "What?" So I went in there, and I was like, "Oh, it was the older home in California, and it had kind of fluorescent bulbs." And I was like, "No, maybe the fluorescent just kicked on or something." I didn't know. There was no reason. And I hadn't thought about the light because I was going through divorce. I had a lot of trauma going on. And so the next day, she went to go, she went to go take a bath. And next thing I know, like, my son walked past me. She went to the bathroom. I heard the water start. My son walks past me. He goes into the room by the bathroom to his bedroom. And then I hear my daughter open that door of the bathroom. She runs down the hallway, and she's standing in front of me, dripping wet, with a towel around her. And she says, "Mom, there's a man in the bathroom." She says, "My son's name is in the bathroom." And I said, "No, he's not." And I called his name, and he called out from his room. He'd never left his room. The door was locked or shut. And so I thought, oh no, because we lived on a ranch with other people, like, down below. And there were a lot of people that would come there for horse shows. So I thought, surely no one broke in the house. So I went in the bathroom and I kind of inspected the room and everything. And I sat on the toilet seat while she took a bath so she wouldn't be afraid. And she was probably, I think she was 8, maybe.
Yeah,
No,
she's still a baby.
no, I think she was older than that. I can't remember the exact time right now how old she was. But she was young. And so I stayed in there, and those doors never went back up. She said that what she saw was by the toilet, and it went very quickly to the mirror. And I said, maybe it was your hair. You know, I was trying to justify it. So the third day, I was doing
Always
laundry.
threes, isn't it?
What's that?
It's always in threes. There's a lot of threes.
Yeah, and here it goes. Get ready for this. So the third day, I had been doing laundry. Now I was getting a divorce. And my parents had loaned me their car because I didn't have a car. And I had been doing laundry, and the washer and dryer were in the garage where we were living, and their car was in that garage. Now their car that they loaned me was older, and you couldn't just pop the hood. Like if I'd go to get the oil changed, I took this metal spatula and I would pry it open, and I'd have to push it open, the hood of the car, because it was that hard to open. So I had been doing laundry throughout the day, and it was just my daughter and I home that day. And nobody, I mean, the doors were locked. We'd stayed inside all day. I go out there to do the third load of laundry, and the hood of the car is popped. And it stopped me in my tracks. And I got this feeling, I was like, oh no, it's back. The lights coming on, the thing in the bathroom, this is popped. And it just sent a shiver down my spine. And I thought, oh my God, because I knew no one was in the house. So that night, we were it was like a suite, like a master suite. My son was in my seating area. He was older. So he's 4 years older than my daughter. And she fell asleep on the bed because during the 3 days, my daughter started saying, Mom, my room feels better. It feels good in there again. I can go back in there. So whatever was in there is now out in the house, loose. So she fell asleep on the bed, and I was playing spider solitaire. Now here I am, missing electricity. I'm next to the window. We're watching the TV, my son and I, because she fell asleep, the kitten, on my bed. And I thought, God, I just wanted to sleep in my own bed finally tonight after her room's feeling good again. But that wasn't going to happen. So we were watching 2.5 Men. I'm playing spider solitaire on the computer. Next to me is my phone on the charger. A light's plugged in, the computer's plugged in, the cable box or the router is there. Like all this electricity is right next to me. And the show ended. He said, I'm going to bed. And I said, okay, good night. I got up and I walked through the house, turned off the lights, made sure all the doors were locked. And I came around the corner to go back in the bedroom. And there in the window, it stopped me in my tracks, was this thing. And I didn't have the word entity yet. I'll tell you when that happened. There was this thing in the window. It was very short. And in where the lamp was, I could see just total oval. For your listeners who are listening on the radio right now, I'm circling my face. It was an oval shaped blackness where a face and a head should be, but it was a shape of oval. And then there was a shoulder and a pec, and those were gray. So the head part was black, but the light was shining on this like sheen of muscle, and it was very developed. It was like a man. But when I saw it, I felt, this is going to sound weird, but I felt like it was an insect. I just had this feeling like it was an insect. So it stopped me in my tracks. And it was very short, and it was turned looking at my daughter on the bed. And I just had this overwhelming fear come over me. Like I thought, is that a man? Like my mind was like, is that a man? What is that? What the H is that? I didn't know what it was. And then I felt it look at me. And when that happened, I just bolted for the wall and laid flat against the wall where it couldn't see me. I never heard it run off. But right before that happened, it disintegrated in like pieces and just left, and very quickly, just like my daughter had talked about. But it wasn't like smoke. It wasn't like particles of like something you could pick up. It was almost like I keep telling when I tell about what happened, it was like in the glass of the window, like it was almost like a television screen in the window, and it just left. But it like in that motion, I never heard it crack a leaf. I never heard it jump the gate. I never heard it stomp off. So I'm up against the window. I'm looking at my daughter. I can see her out of the corner of my eye, and she's asleep. I know my son is safe. And this feeling came over me again. Feeling is where it's at. And I heard the words, show no fear. And like a robot, I went over and I turned off my power cord, just the whole power cord. I didn't like bother to individually turn things off. And I got in bed. It was gone. I got in bed and I just sat next to my daughter, and I kept my ears open in case my son needed me. And I held that blanket up to me, and I could not go to sleep. So that was like midnight. So probably 3 a.m, I just kind of just passed out because I was just exhausted waiting for this thing to come in. I didn't know what to do. So the next morning, I called my ex-husband and I told him what happened. And I called my brother, who doesn't believe in this stuff. And I told him what happened. I said, if anything happens to me and the children, please tell the police this is what happened, the circumstances leading up to this, because I don't know what that was. But my daughter and my son were like, Mom, whatever that was, you gave it the energy to leave. The house feels good again. My daughter went and slept in her bed. They didn't care. They weren't scared. We were going outside playing at night, and I'm like, get back in here. I went and got blankets and finishing nails, and I nailed blankets around the window. I was so terrified of what that was. And then I got angry. And I was like, come back here. I started challenging it. I wanted to know what it was. And I went to one of my friend's house who is a tribal member for the Pechanga tribe. And he's like, oh, do you want my cousin Bear to come over and sage your house? That's just an entity. And sometimes you'll see 3 of them at the foot of your bed. I'm like, no, I don't want to see that ever again at the foot of my bed or anywhere. I never want to see that in the window.
Are they from a Native American tradition?
Yes, Pechanga. Okay. So this was in Temecula, California. So he said, sage the house. My ex-husband said, sage the house. I got sage. And I opened the windows and I sent this. They're like, send it away. I sent it, and because I'm kind of funny, but I sent it to space junk in outer space. I was like, that's how far you got to go. But then later I was like challenging it. Come back. I want to see you. What were you? I didn't understand it. And it had been a while since I'd had any experiences. I didn't have experiences at all during my marriage like that. I saved kids' lives instead. So anyway, I challenged it. And then my brother called me really early in the morning, a week later. And I thought, oh my God, my parents must have died. My brother never calls me. And he knows I'm a late sleeper. So to call that early, something's wrong. And I answered it. And he said, Nancy, you know that guy we were going to cast in our film? So I was out there to produce a movie with him. And I said, yeah. He said, the one that the man committed suicide and he blew his head off. And he said it like that. And I said, yes. And I said the name. And he said, yeah, he came to me in my sleep last night and told me he's sorry he scared you. Now I'm going back to bed and I don't ever want to hear this crap again. Now, my brother doesn't believe in any of this, stuff. So he was angry that now he's got somebody waking him up. This is before I ever dreamt of, this was like 14 years before I had cancer. So I thought, that's it. That made sense. This person was a very built man. He was an actor. And this this entity didn't have a head. And they had him cremated. His family did. And so I thought, that's what I saw. So after that, I thought, I'm just not going to be afraid anymore. I don't have to invite it in, but I just can't be like scared of the stuff. Because my daughter, who was a child, said you gave it the energy to leave from the lights, from the car battery, from the water, whatever. You gave it the energy to leave. And I believe, that first encounter, like with the lights popping on, I thought, well, that was weird. And then the entity thing in the window or in the bathroom dashing, I thought, maybe my daughter's got the gift too. That's where I was
think
going.
She does. I've met your daughter, and I think she does.
Yeah, I think she's very old. But when I walked out in that garage, CL, and that car hood was popped, I thought, oh my God, I'm in trouble. Here it goes. Buckle up, because it's all going to come back now.
Now, you say a really interesting thing, though. You use this energy, your intuition, to help guide you through life and help guide the lives of your children. I think that's a big step, because I think a lot in paranormal world, right now the paranormal world is really caught up with entertainment. And so everyone's using it to run out of buildings scared and to film scary things. They're not really using it
to make money,
To make money, that's a big one. But they're really not using it to help themselves, to help anybody else. And I think that's more the point of it.
Yeah. Yeah, in my opinion, it is. I know when I paid for that ghost hunt with these reputable people, I went and I had a fun experience, because I was making memories with my daughter and I was meeting people, but I kept asking them, have you ever had this happen? Have you ever seen a platform in the sky? They looked at me like I was insane, because they were used to hearing like a knock,
right,
or capturing a voice. I'm like, I have seen a platform reflecting the ground below with my friend. We both witnessed it come across the road and turn into the road reflection and the car. And we rolled down the windows and it was silent. And it was enormous. Oh, sorry, you've only heard little like sounds. Then I'm like, I'm the expert. So I didn't need to go to anymore. I was like, I'm done. I need to find a new tribe. And I saw you and like, she's my tribe. I know I couldn't hang out with this woman.
That means a lot, Nancy. Thank you. We are just about out of time, but I really want you to talk about where people can find your artwork. And if they want a picture of like their dog or somebody, they want to commission you for a piece of artwork, how do they do that?
Well, I have my Nancy Spurlock Art YouTube channel, but I guess the best way to get a hold of me is through my Instagram. So it's also Nancy Spurlock Art on Instagram, and just send me a message. Tell me how you've heard about me, but I'm going to paint some of the things I've talked about. I was always afraid to paint them until I met you, and with your spirit art is so beautiful and got me so excited to do that. So I'm going to try that rather than painting drummers. I paint it all, but yeah, if anyone wants anything, I'd be happy to, talk about art and see what you have in mind. Yeah, it was a gift, truly a gift given to me that absolutely 100% saved my life. When that doctor said my tumor growth rate was almost 60% and 20 was high, that I would have been dead, I think that painting, I thank that spirit that pushed me out of bed and had me paint it. And the same with Alice Cooper. I didn't even get into that. So what happened was, that was January 1st. I was watching a show called Supermensch, and Alice Cooper was on there, and he had these blue eyes, and I thought, I'll paint a colored painting. And again, I got kind of pushed up and off my couch, and I painted that. So something was with me.
I think something is always with you. And just your whole story is just so amazing. You really ought to think about writing a book or something to discuss a lot of this, because your story is just, it's really amazing, and how you're able to harness it in order to kind of guide you and to guide your kids' lives. And you've helped me a couple times as well, using intuition. So I think you're a beautiful artist, and thank you so much for coming on the show and talking to us.
Thank you. I've been a professional writer for 40 years now, and I work for the electric company of all things. So, keeping that current in the family.
Do you ever have any strange things happen at work? I guess the current doesn't come that far, does it?
No, but I mean, I can tell when you work with people. I'm a really good intuitive with people, and I can see we'll call it a train wreck coming from a mile away. I'm very discerning. That's what I like to call it professionally. I'm very discerning now, thanks to this ability to see what's going on with somebody and to feel it. I can see the good, I feel the bad. And that's why it's like, ooh, I'm a cancer survivor. I can't feel that bad energy. I can't do it. I got to protect myself. So I just kind of put up an invisible force field around me mentally, be like, rebound that energy. So,
Nancy, thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you.
You've been listening to The Gateway, broadcast from the edge of the Mojave where the strange slips through the cracks, live from United Public Radio Network 107.7 FM New Orleans. My guest tonight was Nancy Spurlock. She's an intuitive and artist from right here in Las Vegas. And isn't she just a beautiful soul? I just love her. You guys, again, next week I'm going to be my own guest. So bring your questions, ask me anything. I'll be here for an hour on this show, talking about whatever you want to talk about. I'll talk about haunted Las Vegas, some of my adventures out in these ghost towns. I could play some EVPs for you. Whatever you want to listen to or talk about, just shoot me your questions and we'll do that. So until next time.